Our speaker today is Gerry Murphy. The title of his talk is Divine Comedy. Please help me welcome Gerry.
Well, I'm going to begin with a disclaimer because last week, yes, the title of this talk today is Divine Comedy, but if you came here expecting a theological or scholarly analysis of Dante's Divine Comedy, you will be disappointed. That was a play on words. Because the subtitle does say Celebrating the Lighter Moments of Ministry, and I'm a former Catholic priest, so that's where we're going. All right. So, chapter 13 of my book, Do It Anyway, Deep Spirituality Meets Real Life, is titled Send in the Clowns. And it begins with a quote from E.B. Whitley. I arise in the morning, torn between a desire to improve the world and a desire to enjoy the world. This makes it hard to plan the day. Live well, love much, laugh a lot. This is a co-opted line from Bessie Anderson Stanley's poem Success. To me, it speaks to the essence of what constitutes a healthy outlook on and relationship to life. Now, a priest friend of mine has a particular take on what physicists call the Big Bang, that nanosecond of explosive light energy that erupted into existence the known universe and space-time. He refers to this moment as God's rip-roaring, rapturous laughter at her newest creation. And I think the man has a point. Laughter is a consciousness impulse of epic and cosmic proportions. Essentially, laughter is a spontaneous, conscious response to the incongruous meeting of two people, events or incidents that in their absurdity and apparent dissonance make us fall over laughing. Now, I'll return to the healing and the liberating gift of laughter in a moment. But first, I want to share with you 4 short stories of when I was a rookie priest in California, 20 years ago now. And I was in a fairly large suburban parish on the East Bay, in the Bay Area, very close to Berkeley. And we had about 4,300 families, so we were busy. So over those short 3 years, I had my share of bloopers and embarrassing moments, and I'm going to share some of those with you this morning. So 4 short little stories to exemplify spontaneous laughter when there's nothing else you can do but laugh. Story 1 is a wedding story. And I'm going to title my little stories. The first one I'm going to call Train Wreck Exit. So picture the scene. We had a large, modern, hexagonal-shaped church. We had stained glass windows on either side. You had rows of pews on the right and the left, and the floor was a sloping floor all the way down to the sanctuary. So the church capacity was about 800, but on this morning we had about 150 guests for the wedding, all very formally and colorfully attired. So once the bridesmaids and the groomsmen had filed down the center aisle and been placed to right and left of me, the officiating priest, we have the bridal entrance. So I want you to think, some of you are older than me, some of you are younger than me, but I remember the wedding of Princess Di to Prince Charles. Do any of you remember that? If you weren't alive then, you may have seen videos of it on TV. So think Princess Di. This bride is wearing a beautiful, long, white, flowing lace wedding dress. But the centerpiece was this beautiful silver tiara on the crown of her head, attached to which was this long, what I will call a cathedral-length flowing veil, and it way extended past the train of her wedding dress. So much so that one of the bridesmaids' full-time job at the ceremony was to be directly behind the bride to gather up the veil in case anyone or anything tripped it up. So she was a real bridesmaid. So they made their way to the altar, and the ceremony begins. Now, the couple are in front of me. They have kneelers and they have 2 seats. So the only time really when the bride would move around the sanctuary was at the part of the ceremony where the couple lights the unity candle, and that's way off to the side. So at that moment, the bridesmaid would jump up and adopt her role as the bridesmaid. So she'd gather up the veil, and off they went to the side of the altar to light the unity candle. That went without a hitch. So everything's going beautifully. So fast forward to the end of the ceremony. I have done my solemn nuptial blessing. Everybody's applauding. And now the groomsmen are linking up with the bridesmaids. They're all filing out of the church, making the way for the final exit of the groom and the bride. So the groom and the bride set off down the aisle with this long cathedral-length Lady Di wedding veil in tow. Everything's going beautifully until about halfway down the aisle, all of a sudden, this beautiful silver tiara pops off the bride's head. Gasp, shock, horror. Who or what could have scuppered this beautiful exit? Their cameraman is in front of them, backpedaling to, this is live recording, getting everything on film. So they were looking to see, well, where's the bridesmaid? Where could it have gotten stuck? Father Murphy is entangled in the bridesmaid's veil, not even aware that I was entangled in it. And the bridesmaid, whose job it was to gather it up and follow the bride, she just linked up with one of the groomsmen, and off she went. So what do you do in a situation like that? You laugh and you keep going. It certainly makes for a fun playback on their wedding video. So that was the train wreck exit. All right, moving on. Story number 2, also a wedding story. Are you familiar with the expression helicopter parent? Yes, the overbearing, overprotective, controlling parent overly involved in their child's education. I think the more recent term now is lawnmower parent. Do you know that one? Tiger parent. Tiger mom. Okay. I didn't know about that one. Lawnmower I heard of. Mowing down all possible obstacles to protect your child. Anyway, for the sake of simplicity, my second story I will call Helicopter Mother of the Bride. So you can guess where this one's going. All right. Now, before a big church wedding, there's always a rehearsal. And it's always the evening before. On this occasion, it was several days before the wedding. It was 4 or 5 days before the wedding. I was called in as the priest to be there for the wedding rehearsal. So we're all gathered, the bridal party, groomsmen, bridesmaids, family, and the priest and the couple. And this is going to be a pretty formal wedding. We're talking tuxedos, the whole 9 yards. And I could overhear a conversation with the couple and the bride's mother. And it wasn't going very well. Because midway through, well, first of all, she's going over their itinerary of everything the couple would or would not be doing over the coming days right up to the moment of the wedding ceremony. And she was doing all the talking. And I'm thinking, do we have a control freak here on our hands? Is she going to run the entire rehearsal? And the next thing, I hear them getting into a heated discussion about what the bridal party and the groomsmen, and the groom in particular, would be wearing. Now, this young man is from Hawaii. They don't wear tuxedos in Hawaii. Look at Don's shirt. That's an Hawaiian shirt, Bermuda shorts, and flip-flops. So he is standing his ground. He's not wearing a tuxedo. And this was not going well. So I think they tried to reach some compromise that maybe he would wear the top part of the tuxedo and get away with the Bermuda shorts and the flip-flops. So I don't know how the evening ended, but on the day of the wedding, he did show up wearing a tuxedo, top and bottom part of the tuxedo, but he was wearing his flip-flops. And I thought to myself, fair play, young man, fair play. You got away with that. This woman is not going to control your life. Hopefully this marriage will last. And there he is in the pictures, standing amongst everybody else in their shiny black shoes and what have you in his Hawaiian flip-flops. So that's my... Well, I got a laugh out of it. Maybe they didn't. That's my helicopter mother of the bride story. Don't know how it ended in terms of the relationship, the marriage, but I wished them well. All right. Story number 3 is a funeral story. And the title I'm going to give this little story is Graveside Blooper. So normally, I mean, again, we did hundreds of services every year. Some of them are very simple. Some of them are in the church. Some of them you go out to, a local cemetery or funeral home, and you officiate at the ceremony there. Some of them are just simple graveside services. So on this particular occasion, I was the priest assigned to this particular funeral service, and I had not met the family. It was just it was too busy of a time for us to do that, but I did speak to them on the phone. And we talked about their loved one. He was an elderly man, and his name was Gaylord. Now, for the life of me, 20 years ago, I hadn't come across this name before, and I found it somewhat disconcerting. Now, I don't have a homophobic bone in my body, but this conjured up the image of a drag queen in my mind. So this was not good funeral preparation, because this was not a name and it conjured up the wrong image for me. But anyway, and I didn't meet the family. So I went up to the cemetery that morning where they have a chapel for conducting the services. So I just checked in with the person on the reception. I told them who I was and what family I was representing. So she said, well, all you have to just sit out in the lobby. You will see one of our employees. He will come out in a moment dressed in a suit. He'll have the urn in a kind of a blue velvety bag of some kind. And just follow him up to the graveside. That's all you have to do. And the family will be there and you just conduct your rite of committal. So sure enough, a few minutes later, now we weren't the only service happening that morning. That's an important point, just so you know. It's a big, busy cemetery. So I see my man coming out with the urn and the whole thing, and she said, will you just get in your car and follow this guy up to the graveside and just take it from there? So I did. I followed this cemetery employee up into the cemetery where the family were gathered, and so I just went over and he was holding the urn and everybody sort of standing around waiting, as I thought, for their minister. And I started into my rite of committal prayers and scripture reading and whatever else. And then I started into my spiel about their deceased loved one, Gaylord. And I'm trying to keep it together, actually, because it was just this name was throwing me off. But anyway, in the middle of my nice spiel, I could see people getting a little sort of disquieted or perplexed. And then I heard this from a lady, excuse me, Reverend, I think you're at the wrong service. Her name was Rebecca, and we didn't order a priest. That one I got a laugh out of. Like, you order a priest out of a catalogue? So all I could do was, oh dear. I mean, here I am cutting my teeth as a rookie priest. And sure enough, I look over, and at the top of an adjacent hill, I see this funeral director wildly gesticulate at me, Father Murphy. And so, all to say, please excuse the pun, on that particular morning, I felt mortified. Yes. All right. Story number 4. Also a funeral story. This one I'm going to call Dad Always Had the Last Laugh. So I'm back at the same cemetery. I'm jinxed at this cemetery, honestly. And so I'm in the chapel. So this was a very cloudy, dark cloudy morning, and the chances of rain were pretty high. So I consulted with the funeral directors and the family, and we all decided we would hold the service in the chapel. Their deceased loved one's remains is in a casket. We'll do everything in the chapel, and if it's going to rain, we're just going to let the funeral directors, inter their remains themselves later that afternoon. But if the weather remained reasonably stable, after we did the service in the chapel, we would go up into the cemetery. We would do the rite of committal at the graveside. However, on this particular day, none of this went according to plan. After the chapel service, I got a ride with a female funeral director who's driving the hearse with the casket in the back, and then the family were following behind us. Now, on the way, this young woman told me that she'd only been on the job as an apprentice funeral director for a few weeks and was still quite nervous when it came to working on services. So after we arrived at the family plot, I alighted from the hearse, still wearing my priestly vestments, and made my way over to the grave opening. The family and friends of the deceased parked their cars and joined me at the graveside. Now here we are, we're standing around this large open grave with, the apparatus for lowering the casket into the grave. Everything's in place. Meanwhile, the pallbearers waited by the hearse for the new funeral director and the cemetery staff to unload the casket so that they could escort it to the graveside. And the family or I are just waiting patiently and politely. But our waiting time slowly exceeded the time this would normally take. So I then casually glanced over to see what was happening at the hearse and the removal of the casket. Well, to my surprise and bewilderment, the casket was still in the hearse, and the funeral director, along with another cemetery worker, appeared to be trying to pick the lock on the back of the hearse. So apparently the rookie funeral director had somehow gotten out of the hearse, left the key in the ignition, the car locked, or the hearse locked, and they were in a jam. So there they were, trying to pick the lock on the back of the hearse. We're waiting at the graveside, all ready to do this graveside service. So picking the lock wasn't working. So one of the cemetery employees comes over and profusely apologizes for what happened. He says, "This has never happened before." He said, "But don't worry, we have a spare set of keys to this particular hearse down in the office. If you just bear with us, I'm going to make a call and have someone bring them up." So he goes off to the side, makes his call, only to come back to inform us that on that particular day, another employee at the cemetery had gone home early and taken the spare set of keys to the hearse with him. So this interment was not going to happen on our watch. So it was just a comedy of errors of them trying to remedy this situation. And finally it was decided it wasn't going to happen there and then, and the cemetery staff would do the interment later on that afternoon. So what we decided to do was we decided to do the service at the graveside, even though the casket was locked in the hearse. So we did, and everybody gave their little few words and what have you. And in fairness to the family, they didn't get all bitter and upset over this. In fact, as we were leaving, one of the daughters said, "Oh, well, Dad always had the last laugh." So that one sort of saved the day. All right. Okay. So back to laughter. Spontaneous laughter is a return to the innocence and wonder of childhood, where we look at the world with a happy, inquiring, and at times giggly disposition. Joy is second nature to kids. They live in the energy of spontaneous joy and wonder for a good part of the day, if hardship or overbearing adults don't sour it. And joy is a spiritual state born of purity of mind and innocence. The more our spiritual consciousness evolves and the lesser the grip of egoic impulses on our consciousness, the more plentiful and spontaneous will be our moments of joyous laughter. And these are the moments when divine consciousness breaks through our human consciousness to lighten us up. And the more we invite and allow this inflow of divine consciousness, the more centered, kind, compassionate, and less reactive we become to the world around us. Whoever are the clowns in our midst, the chosen ones with the propensity to make us laugh at ourselves, we need to hold them in special favor. For they are the ones who mirror our idiosyncrasies and foibles. They are the ones who take the sting out of life and inject healing, endorphin-releasing laughter where it naturally belongs. They are the jesters of joy and instigators of spontaneous delight. They are the ones without whom the circus of life, fraught as it is with heartache and loss, can't go on. In the poetic words of Kath Shandy Carpenter, who was a famous clown, "Send in the clowns, quick, for something is wrong. The crowd gave a gasp where it didn't belong. Has somebody fallen? Is death standing near? Are the lion trainer's hands trembling with fear? The band skipped a beat. There were animal roars. Quick, send for the joeys to boost the applause. Send for the clouds when the dogs won't perform, when the tigers are restless with oncoming storm. In motley and costume, their entree must last till the cage is assembled, then get 'em out fast. Send for the clowns, what do you say? They're all gone. Well, that's it, we're finished. The show can't go on. Who'll make 'em all laugh? Get the children involved, till the danger is past and all problems are solved. From when the big top goes up till the king pole comes down. That's the power and the glory of being a clown." Thank you for your time and attention.